This week I learned a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never really call himself a man. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with a weekly update, the last for the month of October. Spooky season, we barely knew ye. Just goes by so quick every single year. But hey, there's still a lot of fun to be had. We got actual trick-or-treat stuff with the kids coming up here pretty soon. And that's always a blast. Didn't get to do as much reading this week as I wanted to, guys. We'll kind of get into that as we go along. Let's begin, like usual, talk about what am I reading. I'm about a little further than halfway into The Warrior Prophet. Now, I didn't read for like 4 days because I did take the kids out of town. We took them to this place that I have talked about before called Great Wolf Lodge. If you guys don't know what that is, it is an indoor water park, series of them they got all across the states. And again, when you live at a place like Houston where it can still reach nuclear temperatures and your kids basically get moonburned because you're married to an Irish lass, I think it's a great idea to put the park indoors. Obviously, you don't have to worry about sunblock and all those kinds of things. Now, this is the third time we've been. This is the first time on the new one. The thing was, we thought, okay, I guess we're done with this. We went a couple times. It's in Dallas, which is about a 4+ hour drive from Houston, but they opened up a new one, which is about a stone's throw away from NASA, which is about 2 stone throws away from where we are. So about 45, 50-minute drive. And they do all kinds of discounts and stuff if you go during the off season. And since it is an indoor water park with temperature-controlled water, it doesn't really matter what time of year you go. So we took them there for a couple of days, and it was great. It was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it if you have young kids and you have one near you. Please, I would say definitely check it out because my kids, they love it. They have a blast. My kids are 12 and a half and 9 and a half. They can't get enough of it. But the thing is, when you spend that much time with them, and, I'm like, hey, I didn't get to read that much. That's okay. That's okay. In the end, guys, I'm going to get serious here for a second. If you got those young kids, spend that time with them. Because like I just said, my kids, 12 and a half, 9 and a half, and I already feel like that time of them being like young kids is slipping away. They're going to be wanting to do nothing but stuff with their friends, nothing with us anymore here real soon. And it's going to be hard for me to grasp that, honestly. So I'm just clinging on to it for as long as I can. But as far as Warrior Prophet goes, I think I don't want to say I upset anybody because I made it real clear. I wasn't saying that I was disliking this book. I was just saying I'm not liking it as much as The Darkness That Comes Before, which I think is one of the best single fantasy books I've ever read. So that's a high bar here. And I think because I got set up with, Warrior Prophet's even better, I was expecting something a little amazing. And it still could. It still could. There's been some really great stuff in here. I do like a lot of stuff, like one of the new characters, Salbon. What's going on with him? I'm liking that stuff actually quite a bit. That's very, very interesting. I think I'm just kind of sour because it seems like Nayer's kind of getting the short shrift here. There's a lot of being vague here because I don't want to get too spoilery. There's a lot of Kellis just kind of working his maneuvering around this camp of this holy war that's going across the desert here. He's just really kind of just trying to be like dickhead Paul Atreides, I think. He's just trying to gain influence, it feels like. And it's a lot of that. And it's a slow burn. And that's one of the things that I struggle with the ℚ𝕤𝕤𝕤 is when it comes to military fantasy, there is a lot of sitting around between battles. And I know that's when you do your character development stuff. But I do get to points where I'm like, I do need something to happen. Now, there has been a really good battle in here. And I said that last week that I was anxious to see how he writes battles. And one thing that he did about it was while I was reading that chapter, I was like, I'm struggling with at least half of these names. I thought I was doing pretty good here. And I think that's just kind of like the mechanic that he uses when he writes to kind of get the chaos of battle. Is I'm going to throw a few characters at you. You don't even know who they are. So I don't. It's an interesting choice. They were probably mentioned more than once, and I just have missed it. Some of these names, they are quite complex. And if I feel like if I don't hear them a lot, I'm not going to let me in one ear and out the other. So that might be on me a little bit. But there was enough hooks in that battle, especially with something with Salbon, that's actually got me like, this is way too unique of a fantasy world for that to just be like battle stress. There's got to be something more to what Salbon saw in that battle. So that's what I'm most interested in, really. And I actually think that ℙ𝕦𝕣𝕠𝕜𝕤's story's quite good this go-around as well, especially now with what's going on with ℚ𝕤𝕤𝕤. I'm at a part where, let's just say he's found himself not with the Holy War anymore at the moment. So I hope that's as vague as it can be. I know that people that have read the series want to hear me talk about it, but I do want people to read this. So while I'm saying I'm not enjoying it as much as Darkness Come Before, I'm not miserable like at all. I do think part of it was I was expecting to have my socks blown off by how much people said that they thought this was the best book of the series. But so far for me, it's just kind of slowed down to a point where I'm like, okay, well, I would like some more of that stuff. I liked a lot of that stuff in court with Zarias and things like that. And we're just spending a lot of time at campfires. And that's always been something that I've struggled with when it comes to military fantasy. So hopefully I get more of what I love about the series, which is just the lore, this world, getting to know more about the No God, things like that. That's stuff that I'm really interested in. I want to know more of all the history of this world and stuff. And I think I will. I think we're just kind of in a transition phase. And where I'm actually stopped right now is about chapter 14. Yeah, things are getting really good. So I expect the second half of the book to breeze on by. And I do hope so, because I'm running out of real estate in the month of October here. And that leads me to what am I going to read? Obviously, Finish the Warrior Prophet is what I have on deck this next week. Going to the Texans game tomorrow, so I probably won't get any more reading until Monday, and hopefully get it all done before Halloween. But, hey, if I don't, again, I'm not worried about it. I've already talked about some books I want to read in November, including the next one, which is going to be Fury of the Gods. That's what I'm going to be picking up next. But I've said, hey, I don't get everything done in November. No big deal. No big deal. For me, it's like the only thing that I have on my list that needs to be done this year. I want to finish the Prince of Nothing trilogy. I want to finish Wind and Truth. And I got a ℚ𝕦𝕤𝕤𝕤 book coming up. That's going to be Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom. So that's the only ones that are like, I absolutely have, a time limit on things like that. But, I'm going to be reading 3 of my favorite fantasy authors within the next month. John Gwynne, Joe Abercrombie, Brandon Sanderson. This is the best time to be alive as a fantasy fan. It really is. I am really excited about where these things are going. But yeah, that's really all I got planned for the next week plus or whatever. And try to get some, because I've got some, if you watched, I did talk about some books I'm going to be reading in November, and it's going to be a hefty month. So I need to make sure I get back on task now. But like I said, I never, ever regret spending time with the kids, because there'll be a time that goes by you wish you had it back. How about this week on the channel, guys? Before I left, I did make sure I recorded my November TBR that I talked about. And one thing about that is I'm excited that the big books are back in the menu, as I put it. I had that sabbatical from the big books for a while, and so I didn't want to do anything that was over like 500 pages. Well, all of them are over 500 pages this month. In fact, some of them are really, really hefty. I even got a Ken Follett book in there. And it's one of those things where I said, I'd be stunned if I finish all these in November. But, I did talk about the 4 I'm interested in reading. So, obviously, again, a new Joe Abercrombie book that I'm fortunate enough to read much earlier than its release date. But I'm excited to do it. And I'm excited to check out more Ken Follett. Like, looking at it on paper, I was like, I've got 3 and maybe 4 here with Baker. I've got 4 amazing authors on my list. It's on paper. I have no idea what's going to be the book of the month, because I would think, okay, well, look, I love John Gwynne. It's a new Joe Abercrombie. I think Ken Follett's amazing, and then we'll see how Baker ends The Prince of Nothing. It could be a very, very exciting month, and it could be a very frustrating month when it comes to picking my book of the month. But better to have 4 bangers, than one good one and a couple of whatevers, right? That's always the way that I look at it. So on paper, it looks like it's going to be a very good month. I'll be shocked, like I said, if I can finish them all. But if some got to slide into December, as long as I finish Prince of Nothing before the end of the year, I think I will be happy. But kind of clearing the decks a little bit before Wind and Truth comes out. And that reminds me, I got to read some recaps or something, because it has been a minute since I've been in the world of the Stormlight card. Maybe I'll watch my own spoiler videos. I don't know. Maybe that could be something I do here. I also did an audio performance. Now, I knew that this wasn't going to be anything that was going to be very popular on the channel, just based off of, because I did Dickens' Christmas Carol last year, and it didn't get a lot of attention. That for me is just something fun I'd like to do, because sure, I'd love to read audiobooks. The feedback I did get from the people who listened to that was that I read too fast. It's already a short story. But the thing is like when I read the Christmas Carol, when everybody said I was too slow, they had to speed me up. So I just thought, okay, most of the people do audio. They always speed up their audio. So I'll read a little faster. I'll read like I was if I was reading it to someone here. But so a lot of people, the feedback, they said they had to slow it down a little bit. And then with the music selections that I used, it just sounded weird. So I get it. I'm not a professional, obviously. It's just something I do for fun. And The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. Incredible story. It's the very first Poe that I ever read, even before The Raven. And it's one of those stories that I think back to it, and it made me actually scared of those houses that have like the floorboards that you can actually lift up and look underneath. That's a story that did it for me, you know. So it's one that's always made a good impression on me. So I wanted to kind of share my love for it there and do that performance. And yeah, again, hopefully someday Audible will give me a call and say, hey, how would you like to quit your job and come work for us? You know, we can dream, right? We can dream. Over on Mike's Media Reviews, we continue doing our spooky season reviews. We did The Shining, obviously, of Kubrick's. That's always a fun conversation. Talk about the differences between that and the book and why I think that's one of the greatest movies of the horror genre. Pope's Exorcist, a Netflix exclusive with Russell Crowe. We actually liked that quite a lot more than I thought. I actually said, I know how much I love the Conjuring universe. It's like, you could have told me that took place in the Conjuring universe, and I'd have believed it. And so I feel like that's a high compliment. Then we did a little throwback to Little Monsters, one that we watched with the kids, and that's old classic Howie Mandel, Fred Savage. It's a movie I liked when I was younger. Very clearly was the influence from Monsters Inc. And we talked about that one because that was a fun one to watch with the kids. But spooky season's been a blast. We're still rolling along with it. And like I said, if you guys would do me the favor, we're almost at 5,000 subscribers over on Mike's Media Reviews. Hop on over there, check out the material. If you like hearing about movies and TV and video games and music and things like that, I think that might be the place for you to go. And my wife and I have a discussion over there, so you don't have to just hear nothing but my voice and my ugly face. You get to see her beautiful face and her great voice over there. If you guys want to hear some discussions, we would appreciate her putting out content, 2 or 3 videos a week over there now. That I've gotten all the lighting and the camera configuration thing figured out over there. It's not really difficult anymore. How about some next week plans here? I was really struggling with this because it's been hard to get back on schedule. You take a trip like that, you don't get back until Wednesday. You're already behind everything. Like I said, I recorded the TBR and the Edgar Allan Poe recording before I left. And it's just been trying to get caught up. Work was crazy. Had some appointments I had to take care of. Had some work done on my car. So that kind of like took my whole day yesterday away from me. So sorry I couldn't get this out on Friday. I would try to get back to getting the weekly updates out on Friday. But I was thinking, I have no idea about what my next week plans are. I think if I do another horror one, I think just kind of the annual, here's some horror books I haven't read yet that I'm most anxious still to read. And I'm not just going to be doing them in spooky season anymore. I'm going to be doing them year round. So I could talk about hey, my next 10 horror books that I plan to read. And then kind of a conversation I kind of got baited into on Twitter by Spencer over at Fantasy Files Podcast is there's a lot of debate about people who wait until a series is completed to read it, or say they're going to wait until a series is completed to read it. And I guess I kind of come down the middle. Like, as I said, I don't feel bad about it. I don't. I've got enough to read that is completed that I don't feel bad about it. But I do think that there is some credence to that argument about like that hurts authors. You think about like a TV show. If you don't watch the first season and you say I'm going to wait till the series is complete to binge it, you might not ever get that because they're not getting the viewership. I get it, but I feel like that's a conversation that can be presented both sides of it. I understand why us longtime Song of Ice and Fire sufferers, I understand why you want to wait. And then there's the other side of it where people like me where I'll buy the series, but I say I'm not going to start it until it's complete. And I think there's a big argument to be had for both sides of it. There's a point to be made for both sides of the argument, rather. I think that both have a good case for why it's a good thing, why it's a bad thing. So I don't really know where that video is still kind of in flux. I'm still kind of brainstorming what it can actually be, but I will be talking about that sometime in the coming week. And over on Mike's Media Reviews, we will continue with our spooky season coverage. I think we've got reviews coming for Terrifier. We did that one. We did Long Legs. Terrible movie. We'll get into that because we disagreed on that one. And then we did A Nightmare on Elm Street with my oldest. And I'll go ahead and go into how scared I was to show him that movie because I wasn't sure how he was going to react to it. Spoiler, he wasn't bothered by it at all. He thought The Conjuring was way scarier. And I'm like, really? Because Nightmare on Elm Street scared the piss out of me as a kid. But yeah, we'll talk about that and, of course, the movies. And we've got several others that are in the can, but I think that's the 3 that we've got coming out this week and should roll those reviews over into early November. How about some TV and movie talk stuff real quick before I do go? Didn't get a chance to talk about last week because the video was running a little long, but we did get to see Deadpool and Wolverine since it came to digital on demand. Liked it quite a bit, obviously. I was one of those who was like, I thought Deadpool, like the fact that the first movie got made, I was happy to see that it got made. Still was obviously very low budget. Ryan Reynolds very much carried that movie Two, I was iffy on it as opposed to everyone else. I felt like it just wanted one foot in super serious and one foot in the comedy. And I'll be honest, I don't usually watch the Deadpool for the super serious stuff, but this, because, it is owned by Disney now, and they let Ryan Reynolds do what he wanted. They let him do the self-deprecating humor on Disney. He clowns the MCU several times. Honestly, for me, what I actually appreciated about a lot, other than seeing Hugh Jackman as Wolverine again, because that was something we thought we'd never get again, and then you'll never replace him as Wolverine. I think really is it felt kind of like the swan song, the goodbye to the Fox Marvel universe, the ones that Fox made, and it was seeing a lot. I mean, by this point, you probably have most of those cameos room for you, but some of the cameos that popped up on that, look, I'm always going to be Wesley Snipes will always be Blade, and what they've done to Hrsh Ali, that is not cool. We'll talk about that another time. But I'll just say, hey, Marvel, hire people that love your product, not that love hearing themselves talk. That's all I'll say about that real quick. But as far as Deadpool Wolverine, it was fun. It was so fun. I was laughing the whole time. The insults were great. The parts that were supposed to have a lot of heart did have a lot of heart and hit good. Yes, I'm a bad parent, so I let my oldest son watch it. Bad language and content included. His favorite part was dog pool, of course. But it was just a ton of fun. And I won't lie, Channing Tatum, it's actually a lot of fun. Where I was like, shit, I don't think I would have minded seeing that movie now. So it was very humorous, and like I said, it had the heart where it mattered, and we both did like it quite a bit. I'm glad it got made because it was touch and go there for a minute. We didn't know if that movie would ever get made, a Deadpool 3, once Disney did acquire the rights there. But it was cool. Like I said, it felt like a goodbye to that Fox universe. Like, all of them weren't hits. There were some really great ones. There were some really bad ones, but there were some ones that really mattered, and I think they really touched on all of those as well. And I don't usually touch it, guys, because I know how heightened people get when you talk about politics, but we did watch the movie Reagan, which is about former U.S. President Ronald Reagan. Watched it this morning, liked it quite a bit. I'm going to be straight with you guys. We grew up in the 80s when Ronald Reagan was president. He was pretty much like a pop culture icon during that time period. So we have a lot of nostalgia for the man and the myth and the president that he was. So it's one of those things where I feel like I can watch a movie on a political figure that I didn't agree with at all, or I thought was great, or was indifferent to at all. If it's a good movie, I'll watch it. That's a very good movie. I never think I've ever watched Dennis Quaid and been like, oh man, he really brought that down. When I heard he was casting Ronald Reagan, I was like, I don't know if that's a fit. He did pretty good. There was a point where you think, someone trying to do the Ronald Reagan voice, it can sound like parody if it's done wrong, but he did a great job with the voice. Look, I mean, in the end, it's hard to get someone that looks and sounds and acts exactly like that person, but I thought he did a good job. They covered the good stuff, they covered the bad stuff, but I thought it was very much a touching tribute to Ronald Reagan and his legacy. So one of those things where I'm like, if you're going to make a biopic about a president, I think you need about 30, 40 years after they leave office to do that, because it's just too, like they did that one on George W. and it was like he left office last year. It was too soon. It's too hard to try to dig up a legacy on someone. They even waited years before they did the one on Nixon. So it's like, I think you need to wait a while before you do these biopics on political figures, and it's hard. It's hard to make these movies without some kind of slant, some kind of bias or whatever. I felt like this did a good enough job. It didn't hide the stuff that was not popular that Reagan did. It heightened a lot of the stuff that he was very popular for. But in the end, I thought it was a really well done movie. So agree with it or disagree with it. I think if you just want to be entertained about someone that was a very, very popular and central figure for Gen Xers, I think it's a movie that if you want to know a little bit more about Ronald Reagan, it's a good flick. And Dennis Quaid, as always, he was really, really great. I had no complaints with him. Like literally the only complaint that I would have with the movie is I wish it was a little longer. I think that there was a lot of things that they kind of had to breeze over like really quick, like his re-election was like that. It was basically like a montage, things like that. But it was cool. It was cool. I thought that the assassination bit was handled with care. It was really good, and the speeches were great. I mean, that's what Ronald Reagan was known for, the great communicator. And it really focused on him being able to be a problem solver with his words over force, I think. So again, I know that's someone will probably take that the wrong way, that I have positive things to say about the movie. I thought it was a good movie. It was an entertaining movie. As someone who was very young and too young to understand anything that was going on really in the world when he was office. He was just the president to me when I was younger. So again, you're looking to know a little bit more about the man. I think it's a good flick. I think it's something good. If you want something that's going to really dig in harder, I think you could find some good documentaries or something like that that's going to have whatever kind of slant you're looking for. You can find that. But as far as just this movie, the performance was great, and I think that you'd be entertained. And I'd recommend that you check it out regardless of how you felt about Ronald Reagan. But guys, that was my week. I'd like to know what your week is looking like. Why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments, guys, and let me know what you're up to. What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you playing? Drop in the comments, guys, and let me know, and I will talk to you there.